Welcome to Woodturning 150, Lesson 6, Turning Finials. The teaching here isn't so hard, it's the doing that's the harder part. We've got two basic tools to use, but we have to remember three things. Keep the speed up, keep the tools sharp, and keep your touch light. The tools we're going to be focusing on primarily will be our skew chisel and the detail gouge that I showed you earlier. It is a narrow tool. It comes to a fairly long point and has a much more severe bevel on the back side. These tools are the most reliable tools that we'll be using. Maybe a roughing gouge, but outside of that, nothing else. So what I'm going to do is turn basically three separate finials. One is a very simple one, which we'll do first. Then we'll do one that is a little bit more complicated, using different parts and different patterns. And then we'll end up with doing a third one, which is all beads. Now, every design is up to you, but remember they are supposed to be an elegant attachment to another object. And so design, flowing lines are all important. So I'm going to be using some maple blanks, and we'll be running at full speed, and I'll take you through each of these and provide a little bit of commentary. Most of it is watch. Does everything work perfectly? Not always. There's going to be some failures from time to time, likely for me too. So let's get to the lathe and get turning some finials. Well, here we are set up to do our first finial. I'm using strips of maple, a little over 3/4 square, a little longer than a pen blank, and I'm using it in the chuck to give a better, more substantial hold on this end. I've used the small coin point off of the one-way live center because it gives me a lot of clearance on this end, which I can also use. So we're tight between centers. We're going to rough it out, and we're going to shape it down into a long, slender cone. Speed up. Just roughing cuts. So we now have a round spindle, and what I want to do now is to taper this a little bit. So I'm going to set my tool rest to a taper angle. Now, to start shaping this finial, I'm going to leave a lump here so I can use tailstock support. I'm going to have a cove, a long, slender cove, down, and I'll put a tip on the end of it eventually. So now this is a cove, creating a long, sensuous look. before I do much more here, I'm going to shape and sand this until I'm happy with this shape. While I still have good strong support on both ends. At 180 grit, if there's a spot that's not quite right, I can actually sand out. With finials, shape is very important. If this curve is not continuous and soft, the piece will not look right, and your eye will immediately go to the flat area or the bump. So that's just 180, good enough for our practice. But now what I want to do is begin to shape the other end here. Skew is getting a little dull. I'm going to switch to a different one rather than take the time to go and sharpen. That'll be fine. So this is going to be a small bead shape up here. And we also know we always have a problem with clearance in turning beads. So let's open this up just a little bit here. And it needs to go farther. So I'm looking at this constantly to see if this shape works. So I think it kind of does. Let's go a little deeper in here. I want the top to be softer. Sort of like that. So now we have to figure out how we're going to finish this off, and I think we'll just do another bead, and then because the spindle is going to have to fit into something, I'm going to put a 3/8 tenon on the end of it. Which probably will be about there. So I'm going to get a parting tool to open up a little bit more of that wood. It's easier to get in here with a tool like this. You can already see this is the part that's going to be the tenon. We'll come back and resize that in a minute. But let's make this into a bead here. A little worried about clearance for this big tool here, but it's working so far. We need to size that, so we measure distance we want, let's say 3/8. And we'll size that with the parting tool. Okay, so now we have that sized, and we'll extend it a little bit. And now we'll come back and sand in this area. Still haven't forgotten about this. I think I really would like that a little smaller. That's just a matter of preference, personal preference now. I'm going to get down inside a little closer. That'll give me a little bit more control. Go back to our skew chisel. Sanding. Now we're going to come down and finish off this tip. And again, that's going to be done with the skew. I'm going to first of all create a little shape here. And we're going to come it down just a little smaller. Very light cuts. Using the toe. I'm going to break this to a little bit of a point. Use the tip now, only because it gives me a chance to see a little bit better. Planing cut. It still has tailstock support all this time. Now I'm going to take it away. And now I'm going to need to support this. Fingers on the back side, providing no pressure, but just even. And just a little bit of sanding. I don't want this really sharp, so I'm going to kind of allow it to get rolled off a little bit. And now we want to part this off. And I'm going to use a thin parting tool here, so I don't have to take too much of the material away. I'm going to go to one of my thin parting tools, holding the whole project with my hand, using my thumb. Overlapping cuts, even with a little tool. is our first very simple finial. Now let's go on to something a little bit more complicated. What I'm going to do on this next one, I'm going to put another blank in here just like this. I'm going to shape it down to a cone just like we did. And I'm going to do that before we get started, saved a little time. Okay, we've turned this back down to a cylinder again, and I'm going to try something with just a whole line of beads. First I wanted to show you my shallow fluted gouge that's specific for detail work. First of all, you see how narrow the point is. Second, how more acute the angle of the bevel is. Third, I've gone back here and shortened the bevel by taking a bunch of the mass here off so I can get down into even tighter little places. So anyway, that's where we're starting. I need that tool. And I need one of my skew chisels to lay out where we're going to be going. So let's start off here with a bead. Everything's nice and tight. Get a little finial coming down from that bead. So the first bead is probably right there. On these little guys is to remember everything applies as worked on the big ones. Roll the tool. Next bead's going to be just a little bit bigger. Like a bead yet, does it? Looking better. Next bead. One more? One more. Okay, let's see how we're going to finish this off here. Let's see, another cove in here. Try not to run into the bead. And we'll clean this up and part that off there. Let's use our wide parting tool to establish some flats in here. The dimensions right in a minute, not now. I got to go back down here and work on this little puppy. So let's shape him down. I envision a long, slender, pointy thing. Still connected, but a little extra support doesn't hurt. Spot in here. I want to clear it for a little bit further. Just a little detail in there that needs cleaning. Okay, now back to finishing the tip. Now we're going to finish this off. Okay, now 3/8. And we'll part off. How far off are we? Oh, about a good distance. Yeah, just about it. And I use my thin parting tool to actually cut it off. So we have a bead stick. Whatever. Well, here we are back after having turned our finials. I hope that some of the things we showed in these 3 finials that we made gives you a chance to think of some things you could practice with. Remember the 3 basic caveats of finial turning. Keep your speed high, keep your tool touch light, and keep your tools sharp. So remember, we did a very simple one here, which I think anybody could do because it's just simple planing cuts and 1 bead. The key is to keep a sensuous, smooth, flowing line, not just to this one, but to any one you choose to do. This was fun to do simply because it's a chance to practice making some more beads. And this one, while it looks more complicated, is literally V-cuts and planing cuts. Planing cut, V-cut. V-cut for the little wedge, another planing cut, another V-cut. And this is simply a matter of combining those cuts into something that creates an effect like this. Well, this video also concludes the Woodturning 150 series. And I hope each of these lessons has provided you with an opportunity to practice, to learn, to get out into your shop and improve your woodturning basic skills. We'll be back soon in another series, and it'll be a series we call Woodturning 201, which is the basic bowl turning. And in that we will go through a couple of different bowls, but we'll also talk about not only the techniques, but a few things about design and form. So hope you're back for the next series, Woodturning 201. But meanwhile, stay safe, subscribe, have fun in your shop. See you soon.